uh just fixing this here. Sorry for the computer.
I might mention that Paul and Hiawatha were very good friends and did a lot of work together and prayed together and
Okay.
studied together. So we're so glad that you're here representing Hiawatha. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so blessed to be part of this, and I just want to it's amazing you would talk about trees, because I'm all about sprouting and growing trees. Those are the two things I do. I have over 100 fruit trees here, and I just have a farm, and I have a whole channel where I talk about trees. And the thing that excites me about the trees is I see our creator in fruits and the fruits and the vegetables. So I have gardens and trees, and I just, every time I'm out there every day working in a garden, I just think about, how from a seed we get the plant, from the plant we get the tree, and the fruit or the vegetable that's edible that comes off it, and just how the human body works. And the same thing, the nutrition we need, the plants and the trees need the same nutrients, the water, the sun, and the nutrients to make it grow best as possible. And when I think about my life and my walk with the raw food diet, that's what it's about. It's about the water, it's about the sun, and it's about the nutrients. And if you have that, you're going to grow just like a wonderful tree. It's really great. So I met Hiawatha a long time ago when I was teaching. I had ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, which is inflammation of the colon, when I was 19 years old. And I was working on Wall Street at the time. And I found about the Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I went on a raw vegan diet, and I got completely healed of my condition. And at the time, before I grew up in New York, and before I got diagnosed with the condition, I was actually an atheist. And then after I got healed, it opened up my mind. Not only did it heal my body, but opened up my mind to think about just everything. So I became agnostic, I guess. I believed in a little of everything, or a new ager. And I became very familiar with Brian Clement and Ann Wigmore and the Hippocrates Health Institute, because that's where I got better. I went down to Florida and West Palm Beach, where I live now, and I got healed with this food. And I was like, wow. So I became friends with Victoras Kovinskis and another man named Dr. Fred Bishey, who's just all these people I was meeting about the raw foods. And then I wrote a book with all these interviews with Brian Clement, Stan Glazier, and Fred Vichy, and all these people, and Victoras Kovinskis. And then a couple of years later, I was just writing books and just traveling. I quit my job. I became a raw food chef, and I ended up just trying to speak as many places as possible. And somebody told me about the Creative Health Institute, and anything that was connected to Ann Wigmore, I wanted to be part of. I found it amazing that there was a place in Michigan in the cold weather that was doing this, because that's one of the reasons why Brian Clement left Boston and brought it down here to West Palm Beach, was that it would be in a warm environment. And I know the Ann Wigmore Institute moved over out to Puerto Rico, and then there was one also in New Mexico, and then there was a Hippocrates Health Institute here in West Palm Beach. But in Michigan, this place is cold. This is really interesting. So I spoke there a couple of times, and I heard about Hiawatha, and I was like, wow. And the amazing thing is, the real amazing thing was, Hiawatha had a place called the Creative Health, the Yahweh Wellness Center. And I went to speak there, and it was around the time of a Passover or a Sukkot. And I was speaking there, and I must have been a Sukkot because I was staying in a tent. She said, everyone here staying in tents. And I didn't know why, but I said, okay, I was into nature and natural things. So I was staying in a tent. And I ended up meeting a man who was listening to my lecture. I guess he was at the Sukkot event, and he stayed over from that. And that in the middle of the night in Hiawatha's kitchen, he got out of his room. I was working on my computer. He got out of his room, and he started talking to me about the Bible. And he talked to me, he said, your book is you think your book is a good health book? Well, the Bible's the best health book that's ever been written. I said, does it talk about raw food? He said, absolutely it does. Genesis 1:29. I said, does it have testimonies of people living a long time? He said, absolutely it does. And it talks about resting, healing, and all these different things. And I was interested to read the scriptures because I wanted to prove this man wrong, actually. And what happened was that after reading that, I became a Christian, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So and that man was great friends with Hiawatha. His name's Baruch. And me and that man had become best friends still this many years later. So that was my first time that I was at the Yahweh Wellness Center. And since then, I had written many books, and I went back there at least 2 times a year for many years, sometimes more. And me and Hiawatha, we used to talk on the phone all the time, and I was just amazed how simple she kept things. And then between Creative Health Institute, Hiawatha, and and just the whole raw food thing, I was connected a lot with them. I remember I went to Creative Health Institute a good amount, and Hiawatha's place a good amount. And so I was really excited about it. And the raw food diet's just become such a part of my life, where I wrote these books, and I still promote it. I still eat 100% raw vegan diet. And I spoke to Hiawatha a good amount of time. I actually have a Christian ministry now, where we have a Friday night event online, and Hiawatha, we used to get on there and she used to sing. She used to sing, and one of her favorite songs she used to sing all the time was "Make Me Whole, Make Me Whole," and she loved singing that song all the time. And a couple of weeks ago, I sang it in honor of her, and she would just get on there and talk, and then she would call me up, and we would just discuss just her health. And there's something I really promote a lot, this astaxanthin, and she started taking it. And then I think she introduced me to Bob McCauley, and we used to go to the watershed together. And so you always hear about old friends and pass it on, but Hiawatha is a person I spoke to on a regular basis, so I definitely miss her. And it was very sad to hear the things, but her message is going on, and it's a great thing. So for me, I'm carrying on the message, and it's my desire. I make videos on the raw food diet every single day, and just teach this and teach people how to, first, the people that don't know about eating raw food, I teach them what it is and why we should do it. Then there's the how to do it, because I have people in my life right now. I have my brother and my father and my best friend. In the last 3 weeks, I've been to the emergency room 3 times, dropping off people, and in and out of hospitals, and just people all over. They're just getting sick, and they're not listening. And I tell them for years, but they just don't want to listen. And sadly, my children are growing up now, and I train them to eat a raw food diet, and they don't even want to eat healthy. And it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to do it. It's one thing to know it, another thing to do it. And the people closest to me, they see my great health. They see how much energy I have, but they still don't do it. And I've come to realize there's such a addiction to animal meat and animal products. From a mental or emotional standpoint, you have the media just flooding people's minds that you need to eat meat or an animal product to get certain nutrients. From a physical standpoint, people aren't eating healthy, so they do need nutrients, and the only place they can think of getting it is from a dead carcass or something. And it's just not the case. It's not about adding more, it's about less. We don't need to have a tremendous amounts of animals or any animals. I haven't eaten an animal or an animal product for a long time. It seems to me coffee, animals, and maybe some form of energy, like or stimulant like caffeine, energy drinks, and all this. It seems like people can't live without coffee and animals. or some form of product, derivative of those things. And it's like, when you're eating healthy, you don't need that. So for me, my biggest thing is if we eat the raw vegan diet the right way, we don't need to add too much other stuff to it. We don't need to mess around and make it more complicated, so I do it. I try to keep it simple. Like Ann Wigmore kept it simple. I try to juice every day. I do a green vegetable juice. To get the greens in my body are so important. And you could do it from a juicing standpoint. You could do it from a blending standpoint, or you could do it from a whole food standpoint. But to get those greens in, for me, that's the key. Because if I get those greens in my diet, I could eat fruit. I could, get away with a lot. But if I miss those greens, my foundation is not there, and it creates a problem. Now with those greens, one thing I've learned from Brian Clement, Ed Wigmore, and Hiawatha is the living food versus the raw food is a big difference. Even if I grow spinach outside of my house, it's not the same as sprouts. Sprouts are powerful, and I have sprouts. I try to have sprouts every day. I have the green sprouts. I have sunflower and pea sprouts, which I grow in my house. And then I have the bean sprouts, the mung beans and the lentils, which I soak and put on my table. I was just eating a salad just now, actually, when I realized, oh, I got a text. I'm going to be on tonight. I got to go speak. So, but I was just eating a salad now. So for me, it's sprouts and seaweeds are tremendous, and the greens. Those are the three staples of my raw food diet in life: sprouts, seaweeds, and greens. And like I said, I have over 100 fruit trees. I love fruit, but if I only ate fruit without those, I'd be in trouble. But if I ate those things with no fruit, I'd be just fine. Fruit is like the snack or the fun food. The sprouts, the greens, and the sea vegetables, these are my staples and the things I know that keep me healthy. And I'm not just barely just hanging on there for a raw vegan diet. I mean, I've been doing this for almost maybe 28 years now, and I really truly do feel amazing. I feel amazing. But I'm the type of person where if I don't feel amazing, I don't want to say I worry, but I'm right on it. If something's not good or something's not going as well as it should, I'm right on it. I'm always listening to my body, and I'm always thinking about it. And if anything's wrong, I'm trying to fix the situation immediately. So another thing is I'm into fitness and exercise, so that's really important as well. But I know it's a mixed crowd here tonight. Some of you might have been doing this a while. You knew Hiawatha, you knew what she taught. Some of you might be recovering from an illness and you're trying to do it. You need to do a little bit different if you're recovering from a particular illness based on what you're trying to recovering from. And some of you just might be interested in just eating better and having more energy. So there's different motivation factors of why people get into this. But the key is you got to do something and try to do a little bit better than what you are doing. And that's moving in the right direction. So you're either moving forward or backwards. There's no standing still. A maintenance, you're either moving forward slowly or quickly, but there's no standing still. If you're standing still, you're going backwards. You got to keep improving. And for me, I have no desire at all for cooked food. I actually, one of the questions that come up often is, do we need to be 100% raw, or can we be less than 100%? Is 90% good enough? Is 80%? And for me, from a nutritional standpoint, you don't need to be 100% raw. You could eat some steamed vegetables. You could eat some cooked food. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see somebody eat in Michigan a nice bowl of warm soup when it's snowing outside instead of a raw food candy bar just to call himself 100% raw foodist. So, from a nutritional standpoint, you don't need to be 100% raw to get the benefits of raw food. However, and also eating a little cooked food will help you from a social standpoint, getting along with people. It makes it easier if you're going out to eat or something. But once you eat that cooked food, or if you don't never stop, it continues to keep that addiction open, where you're always craving or thinking about some type of food. Grains are the most addicting substance on the planet. A grain or something in a grain. So when I say cooked food, most people are eating grains in some degree or another. And I don't, I don't do that. See, I have to, after being 100% raw for about 13 years, I started eating grains again and some steamed vegetables. And I was like, whoa, all the addiction started coming back and everything else. It wasn't much, but I was like, wow, I can't do this, and then, so I wisely stopped doing that. So again, nutritional wise, I could handle it, but I couldn't handle it from a, addiction standpoint. It's like you just want grains, you think about grains, or some people it's dairy. You think about dairy, you just want dairy. But when you're eating raw food, you don't have that. Even fruit, if you're eating, you don't get addicted to it the way you do grains and things like this. And when you eat sprouts, you get all the nutrients your body needs without that addiction. I was like, wow, this works. And I do blended salads. The one thing I don't do that Ann Wigmore did a lot and Hiawatha promoted or suggested was the Rejuvelac. I don't do that. I'm a fan of fermented vegetables. I'm not a fan of fermented drinks. I think they can turn too quickly. I think they can get out of range to begin with. And now you're taking something that possibly has some health benefits to making it something that might not be healthy because from an alcoholic standpoint or something else. So I'm in agreement with sauerkraut and kimchi. I love, but I'm not a fan of fermented drinks and juices and things like this because it's not always that great. And Hippocrates Health Institute found the same thing. That's why they stopped doing the Rejuvelac from the program. But a lot of people get intimidated by the sprouting, and it's very interesting because I tried to sprout a good amount of times when I first got into this, and I wasn't having much success. And then I remember I was traveling and I went to these people, they were like 80 or 90 years old, mid 80s, and I was interviewing them and they said they're eating the Hippocrates diet. And they lived in Ohio, it was Ohio they were living in, and it was really cold outside. And they took me down to their basement. And in their basement, they had a whole sprouting thing. It looked like a screen room or something. I was like, if these people could do it, I could do it. And but I traveled a lot and I really wasn't, into doing it, but I would buy the sprouts. So my friends opened up stores that sold sunflower sprouts. I live right near Hippocrates. I can go there and I can get some whole food meals and things like this. So I didn't need to grow them. But several years ago, a friend of mine was a bartender and he was a waiter. And he called me up one day. He said he quit his job. I said, what do you mean you quit your job? He goes, yeah, I'm selling sprouts to restaurants now. I'm growing sprouts. I'm like, well, what's the easiest way to do it? And, he told me an easy way to grow them. And I've been growing them now for the last couple of years. So easy. So easy. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning, I'll probably sprout more seeds and get another couple of trays going. I was just eating the salad I was just eating now, had my sea vegetables and had my sprouts and I had some fermented vegetables. And that's what I do. It's not complicated. So the more I got into reading the Bible and the more I was involved in health, and I always study on the scriptures from the scriptural standpoint, I came across a book by a lady named Ellen White. Ellen White is a Seventh-day Adventist. Seventh-day Adventists were at one time the only Christians that promoted health, believe it or not. The Bible promotes it, but most Christians aren't reading their Bible, and they spend more time praying for healing of their disease, where if they just started listening to the words, they'd be healthy and ate a Genesis 1:29 diet to begin with. So Ellen White and the Seventh-day Adventists were the only ones promoting diet and a good diet and health and standpoint. Most churches I go to teach at, they have the Garden of Eden coffee shop. And then you go in there and there's no fruits and vegetables. And it's like, this is a church and there's no fruits and vegetables. This isn't good. So Ellen White's program went right along with Ann Wigmore's program. And she talked a lot about temperance and not overeating. And I found out overeating is one of the biggest diseases, the things that cause diseases out there is overeating. And a lot of people are overeating. And why are people overeating? Well, number one, they're not getting the nutrients they need. So no matter how much they eat, they're still craving more nutrients. That was one issue. Another issue was, some of the foods they were eating are very addicting, like grains and so on. And then the other thing is, from an emotional standpoint, is the advertisers and the marketers that are paid millions of dollars to get you to overeat. So they if I found the more people watch TV, the more they would overeat. And then I kept reading the Bible, and it spoke about not just what to eat, but when to eat. And it was something called the daylight diet, or, in the Bible, I found out our Creator just doesn't tell us that fruits and vegetables are the food for man. He also tells us when to eat our food in the daytime when we can see it. And I come to realize that that's when our digestion is working at its best, when the sun is up and when we can see our food. We're not nocturnal animals. So if you eat a salad in the middle of the night versus eating it in the middle of the afternoon, it's going to digest a lot better in the afternoon than it will at nighttime. The nighttime is the time for cleansing and healing, and your blood's supposed to be cleansing when you're sleeping. But when you eat right before going to sleep or eating throughout the night, you're not letting that process happen the way it should, and you wake up all tired in the morning and so on. But you go to sleep on an empty stomach, you sleep better, you eat during the daytime without overeating, you don't need to eat much, and you're eating good foods and you'll be fine. So a lot of people have a difficult time to do it because of all of the advertisers and the marketers and everything else out there. So I'm just trying to motivate people to be inspired, to be consistent at what you're doing. And here's a very important thing for everyone to understand. It is much more important to be consistent than to be perfect. So that's one thing I've learned over the years that's so important. It's more important to be consistent than be perfect. I'd rather see somebody eat 70 to 75% raw vegan on a consistent basis than somebody going 100% one month and 40% in the next month, and 1 week they're all raw and 1 week they're not doing too well. It's not good to bounce up and down like that and go back and forth like that. So we want to set the bar high, but not so high where it makes it too hard to do it or too difficult to do it. I have found that the key to health from a physical standpoint is getting your body the required rest that it needs, because that's where true healing and cleansing takes place. Most people overeat. When you overeat, it uses more energy, the body, to digestion than any other process. So the more you eat, the more sleep you require. There's not enough time to overeat and get the proper amount of hours of sleep that our body needs to properly heal. So the answer is not to do what people do. They take some drug to stay awake, coffee or some other form of caffeine and an energy drink or something else. No, the answer is put yourself in a situation where you don't require that much resting time. And the answer to that is eat the foods that have the most nutrients, but digest the quickest with the least amount of waste left over. And the answer to that is fresh fruits and vegetables, raw, ripe, fresh, organic fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, as the majority of our diet. If you eat the right foods at the right time, you don't require the tremendous amount of rest and sleep that if you're eating a bad diet or overeating and eating at the wrong times. So try to focus on putting your body in a situation where you can get the best sleep possible. The best sleep possible, where your body will, it's amazing how our Creator created us to heal itself. In the Bible, it says, thy life is in thy blood. And we could say they're talking about a wonderful Messiah, the one who died for us, how his blood heals us and cleanses us and everything, and it's beautiful. But thy life is in thy blood. We can also talk about the diseases and the quality of our health. All comes down to the quality of our blood. And the quality of our blood is going to come down to how much rest we're giving our body to do what our Creator does and created us to heal naturally every single night when we're sleeping. And it's very interesting that Hiawatha and Hippocrates and Wigmore promoted wheatgrass. And the reason why they promoted wheatgrass is they understood that someone whose blood was well oxidated, had a lot of oxygen, was clean, was healthy. Somebody that was diseased didn't have the right amount of oxygen in their system. And that was the problem. So the wheatgrass helps in cleansing up of the blood. Thy life is in thy blood. So the sleeping, the wheatgrass, the chlorophyll is so important. The sea vegetables, so important. So, there's a lot of different schedules people are on, and some people still don't believe you can eat this way. I want to give you all an example of this. I found this. This is an algae. It's called astaxanthin by this company called Velasta. There's many other companies that make it, but this one is really special. It's actually a red algae. It's red, if you could see that. Anyway, my dad and my brother, my sister and the mother, they're all sick. Like seriously sick. I mean, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm somebody who's been sick and healed myself of disease and helped people all day long get better from diseases by following information that's taught, passed down from, number one, the Bible, our creator, and taught through Hippocrates and through Hiawatha and all these other people that taught it, and Wigmore and so on. So here I am talking to hundreds of people every year about how to get better from disease or how to avoid disease. And then I call up like my sister and brother and say, or my dad, hey, this can help you, or this diet can help you, or let me show you how to sprout, or even I'll make the sprouts for you and grow the food for you. Come here and get it, or I'll bring it to you. They don't want nothing to do with that because I don't have the white coat and the sign on my door that says I'm a medical doctor or something else. All they want to listen to the medical doctor. They'll listen to Dr. Oz and Oprah Winfrey and all these other people on TV, but they won't listen to me to get better. You know, so it's sad to one degree, but in the other degree, and let me say this, raw food is not a panacea. You know, there's a lot more to health than just our diet. It's very important to know that. Good exercise, joy, no stress is tremendously important. And, you know, we have to get all of it. And so don't think raw food is going to cure everything without changing your life completely in every area of your life. And, you know, getting stressed, you know, there's an answer to getting stressed, and it's called prayer. And it's called praying to our creator, the right creator. It's not, you know, praying to anything else or anyone else. And that's the stress relief you need. You don't need drugs or anxiety medicine or anything else. No, you need to be in communication with our creator and keep speaking to him. And people say, well, you know, I never hear from him. Well, open up your Bible, because that's the whole book of him speaking to you. So we need to open up the word, you know, and then people say, well, I want to verbally hear from him. I say, well, do you verbally pray to him? You know, so it works. It works. Stress-free, get the rest, eat the foods he provided for us, keep thy blood clean, and keep thy life just joy-filled. And this worked. And I believe Hiawatha knew and promoted a lot of these things I'm talking about. And I can't believe it. For so long, I you know, I would just call her up and just, it's hard and sad to believe that she's not with us right now, but what she taught made a tremendous difference in my life. And, you know, and she's very missed. You know, I remember one time she came here. Oh, I just saw my sprout in my beard. Nobody told me. I remember one time she came here, and I was looking for her because I always know her to be healthy and vibrant. And I was at the airport, and I was waiting for her. I was picking her up at the airport, and all these people were walking by me. And then all of a sudden, you know, she went right by me. She was in a wheelchair, and I didn't even recognize her. And I got concerned. I said, Hiawatha, what happened? Why are you in a wheelchair? Are you okay? Did you hurt your leg or something? She goes, I'm fine. Now, I just figured they offered this, so why not take it? Why not take the ride if they're going to offer it? I'm like, oh, okay. But I wasn't used to seeing it. She got right up in the wheelchair and walked out with me. She goes, well, it was there, so why not? So, yeah. And, you know, she was a beautiful woman, and she taught me a lot. And a lot of the things I'm teaching you came from her and the things that I learned. And yeah, so if anyone has questions or comments, I'll take some now. And you can go to my website and contact me through there. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I told you I have YouTube channels. I have several. Raw Life Health Show is one of them. I also have Fruitful Trees, which talks all about the trees. And then I have my Bible channel, which is Torah Life Ministries. Okay, so I thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to take some of your questions. I see some questions in the side chat. Should I just read those and answer those?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. How much sprouts do you blend with your greens? Well, Well, if I do a blended salad, or a green juice, I don't put really sprouts in those as much as on top of those. So when I sprout my bean sprouts, my mung beans, and my lentil sprouts, I usually sprout a cup in a bottle and have that on the counter for about a week. And sporadically, we'll put them in salads and put them in my on top of my blended salads and so on. So that's what I'll do with that. Next question is, somebody says, how do you get your intake of vitamin B? Well, vitamin B is loaded in many different foods, but B12 is the one that is not as found as much in a vegan diet. And I do take a vitamin B supplement. But I don't take it often. Maybe once or twice a week, maybe even once a week now, I might take a vitamin B tablet and just throw it under my tongue. But there are some foods that do have vitamin B in there as well. But for the vitamin B12, I'm talking about vitamin B12, I rely on the supplement. But yeah, that's what I do for that. But I don't take any other vitamin B supplement besides the vitamin B12. What is a super easy way to sprout? Well, there's two things to sprout. There's beans and there's greens. And the beans are very easy. You just soak them in a cup on a little. I have a little mason jar. Well, it's a big mason jar. It's actually this size on the counter, and I put a cup of lentil sprouts in there or something, and I'll soak them for a couple hours, and then I have either a mesh top, or they sell for these mason jars now a plastic cover with holes in it, and you just pour it over, leave it upside down. And once or twice a day, you just rinse it, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. You just rinse it and turn it upside down. And in 2 or 3 days, you'll have some bean sprouts or legume sprouts. As for the sunflower sprouts and the pea sprouts, or even broccoli sprouts, they call them microgreens as well. I have a video on my website talking about this, but pretty much I soak the seeds for about 4 to 5 hours. And then I plant them in a tray of dirt. I water them, I cover them for about 2 or 3 days. Then as I take the cover off, and then they start growing, and I have them on the light in my house. I have a little fluorescent light, so you can see on my website, on my YouTube channel, me showing how I do that. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. What food will boost your immune system? Well, the immune system's interesting. The body was designed to fight off disease and do everything that it needs to do. And when we interfere with it, that's when it goes down. It's not when we're adding stuff to it. See, people get that misunderstood. They think we need to add stuff to be healthy, or to fight disease. No, it's letting the body do what it is and stop interfering with the process. So the best thing you could do to boost your immune system is fasting and letting your body detox and cleanse, not adding more, but taking less. But from a nutritional standpoint, inflammation is one of the biggest results of overeating and living unhealthy. And there's a test called the CRP, C-reactive protein, which is a blood test. And your number should be, if you take a blood test, under 2. If you're taking maybe even closer to 1, that means you don't have inflammation as much in the body. People with cancer might have a tremendous amount, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but it should be under 1. Well, that's a good way to see what's going on with your inflammation. And the astaxanthin lowers, the Bivalasta lowers the inflammation more than anything I found. And it's really powerful stuff. So a couple of drops of this a day. I mean, it's working great for people who have cancer and inflammation, arthritis. It does great with. It's a whole food in a supplement form. So something like this is what I'd suggest. And I have this on rawlife.com. But again, fasting and resting and letting the body do what it was designed to do is the way to boost your immune system. You don't need to add extra stuff. Now, of course, if somebody had a cold, I would tell them to take maybe some zinc, some vitamin C, maybe take some essential oils. This stuff would help. How much water do I drink daily? Not too much. I don't drink too much water daily. I'm very active. I eat juicy fruits, but I don't eat as much. And when I do, I get a lot of water in my food. Remember, I'm eating all raw, so there's so much liquid in my food. So I don't drink too much. There are days where I don't eat at all and I'll just do water. So those days I'll drink a lot more water than I normally would. And you know, when you don't eat cooked food, eating cooked food's like swallowing a sponge. You know, it sucks up all the water. But when you're eating water-rich food, you don't need as much water. So I don't drink too much water. I drink some, but not too much. But and you know, when they give a recommendation of how much water everyone needs, you know, it's going to be different for every person based on many factors, but for one, what you're eating. So yes. Thank you. Okay. If you have, does anyone have any other questions you want to post there? I'll be happy to answer. And if not, contact me anytime through Real Life Health Show, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. And we also have our live fellowship every Friday night for the last 8 years from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern time. We've been doing live fellowship on my my YouTube channel, Torah Life Ministries. And every single morning at 6 a.m., we have live prayer. Eastern time, 6 a.m. Eastern time. And that partly was due to Hiawatha, because she told me she used to get on a phone call at like 5 o'clock every morning on the phone, a literally phone, not even the internet. And I was like, well, you know, that gave me the idea to do the prayer group. So I do that. I've been doing that for years, and it's a blessed time. So if anyone's ever looking for prayer, you could, the rerun's always on anytime, but every morning at 6 a.m., 6 days a week, it's at 6 a.m. Eastern time. And Saturdays for the Sabbath, I stay in bed a little bit later, so it's a little later, but Sunday to Friday, it's 6 a.m. Eastern time. Torah Life Ministries is the Bible channel, and that's where you could find the prayer.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Paul, we could listen so much longer. This has been an excellent